I'm not gonna lie, I was shocked when you asked me, you were like, what topic you want? And I'm like, woman, I've been trying to do topics since we started this damn show. And you're like, hey, just let it flow, let it flow, let it flow. We believe marriage teaches us more about ourselves than we would ever find by only viewing ourselves from a distorted lens.
Don't believe us? Stay tuned if you dare to form a different opinion about yourselves from each episode.
This is Unfrequent Talks
with Jenny
and Aaliyah.
It was a great week, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'm learning to be a little more present and at peace with what I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I think learning to be at peace and present is important.
Yeah. And I think we confuse it with external materialistic things.
That bring you peace?
Yeah. And happiness. When in reality, it's internal.
Yeah.
This is like if your internal wiring is all discombobulated, then your external will just match the energy.
Yep.
And I think for once, I don't feel like I'm conflicted inside myself. And it's starting to show outward.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to see.
It is.
Because I didn't need to bear the fruit to be externalized in order to realize that it already took place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is pretty beautiful. It's contagious.
Yeah, you think so?
Absolutely.
Well, tell me more.
Because I can be like at peace with myself, but when there's like chaotic energy around me, it's transferable.
Ooh.
And the same can be said with like peaceful energy.
I like that. That's
Calm
true.
Energy. It's transferable.
So, I mean, we know this, but maybe our listeners don't know this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more of the alpha and you're more of the beta in our relationship. Not to say you can't have two alphas or two betas, whatever, but that's just how our dynamic is set up.
Yeah.
Which is like your typical dynamic. Like the guy leads, the woman follows, whatever. But I say that because the show we watched in the past and the therapist talked about controlling, making sure that the alpha is taking care of the thermostat in the home.
Yeah.
Like controlling
the temperature.
And it's funny you said that the energy is transferable because now that I'm more calmer and I'm not so like aggressive and all over the place, you've become more calmer too.
Yeah, because I could be as calm and cool as a cucumber.
You can.
But it's because you are like, in layman's terms, the head of the household.
Yeah, sure.
Like I can only try, but like my energy can only do but so much to be transferable to you.
Oh, that's a really good point you made.
And as hard as I've tried, like in the past, it just wasn't being received by you because you were the one and you are the one that controls the temperature in our household.
Yeah, that's true.
That's just the dynamic.
But that's a real thing. Like most, if not all, households have the person that's carrying the energy level. And no, even if what you're saying is, even if you don't want to carry that energy, you kind of get indoctrinated into it because that's the person you are allowing to lead the way.
Yeah, that's so true. I recently watched a video about the dynamic in relationships and marriages, specifically geared towards obviously like straight heterosexual couples.
Yeah.
And how women oftentimes are constantly trying to change their husbands and constantly trying to get them to see their mistakes so then they can change on their own. Obviously, no one can like force anybody else to change.
Right.
But women oftentimes and not try to kind of like put a mirror in front of their husbands and be like, hey, this is what you're doing, look at what you're doing, like fix it. Because this can only go but so far. And the video basically said, like, stop trying to do that and focus on like changing yourself and your inner thoughts and your headspace and stuff. And in return, it's going to basically like force the man to see whatever. But I don't know how much I agree with that, because when you're in a marriage, and this is just my opinion, but when you're in a marriage, like it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
Like it's like I had mentioned before with you with one of our conversations, like I can try and fix my issues by myself without ever telling anything to you, without ever letting you inside my mind, letting you know like what it is that I'm working on internally. And it's never going to translate accurately for you if I keep and harbor all of that by myself. Like nothing is going to change. If that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
So, well, I believe you're going to say the caveat, which is instead you would do what?
That's a good question. Instead, like communication.
So you would speak those thoughts out loud to me.
Absolutely.
Is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's important that we do communicate. I appreciate that we haven't stopped communicating as much as we've been through, some tough times. We've always still communicated that.
Yeah.
And it may not have came across to one another as something we wanted to hear, but we needed to hear it because we needed to know what was going on within each other's head. Because for the longest, we used to always argue with each other and say, I can't read your mind.
Yeah. And then in the same breath, you would always be like, why can't you read our mind? Not saying those exact words, but like, you should have known.
You should have known. I can't read your mind, or you should have known. And we start to weed away from that and, spoke on our thoughts in a way that comes off to the other person without it hurting as bad. I mean, sometimes things are just going to hurt because it's just how you're feeling at the time.
Yeah.
But that's a really good point. It's funny. I don't know why, but the world likes to divide relationships when it comes to what you like, whether you like men, you like women, or it's a heterosexual couple, it's a lesbian couple. I think at the end of the day, like, we are a lesbian couple, but the same things we go through, a heterosexual couple can relate to.
Absolutely.
And people think like, oh, you're married to a woman, like it should be much more easier. No, it's actually much more difficult, because now as a woman, I have needs, but I'm married to a woman who also has needs. And being a alpha in a lesbian marriage, it sometimes comes at a crossroads, because there are times where I want my needs to be met.
Yeah.
And it's not about like sexually, it's like mentally. And when it's not being met, I can't just bleed what I want off to you, because you are a beta and you are more in tune and intact with your emotions more so than I am. So when I do bleed those onto you and I rub my emotions off to you, it gets bled into your own emotions, which compounds and magnifies how you're already feeling.
Yeah.
To the point where you can't even, if you wanted to, come to the understanding of what's going on with me.
Yep.
And so that's the balancing act that I walk now. Is there are times where I want to say something to you, but I gauge your temperature and I'm like, all right, she really needs me right now.
Yeah.
And so I don't table it. I just I put it off to the side for a moment to give you that space to let you know, like, I'm here for you and I'm listening to you. But then, like, once I see that you're settled and you're coherent, that's when I walk you into like my world. I'm like, all right, this is what's going on with me.
Yeah.
Because I definitely feel like in most relationships, one person has a little more of a hold and a balancing act with their emotions versus the other.
Yeah.
And that's where you do that dance. And I feel like I'm really good at withholding my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying that that's what has been working for us, because when things do get tough, we're there for each other, but I give you that floor because I know how you are with your emotions.
Yeah.
They can be a little extreme for you, and I get that. But then when it's my time, you're there for me, and I get to be vulnerable with you and have my emotions come out and show.
Absolutely. It's taken us a while to get here. It
Yeah,
absolutely has. But you're so right. Like there's a lot of straight women out there that like get cheated on or whatever. They go through something not so pleasant in their relationship with their boyfriend, whatever. And they automatically it's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna start dating women because it's just so much easier. It's not. I wish people would stop saying that. I wish straight women would stop saying that. Like we've had people say that to us, to our face.
Yeah.
And we laugh it off. We have laughed it off. But it's so cringy because it's just so cringy. Like why would you say that?
Yeah.
The assumption that it's easier is kind of rude.
It is. It's very much rude.
Because then it just kind of it can easily translate into like not taking a lesbian relationship or two women together, not taking them serious.
Yeah.
Because now you're saying, oh, it's so much easier. It's like, oh, you're like having a roommate, having a girl friend.
Yeah.
And it's just so much easier when it's like that's really degrading to our relationship.
Yeah, it's funny because like that's how most heterosexual couples are. They're like roommates.
Yeah.
I tell you right now, we are not roommates.
No, my goodness.
But to your point, it took work for us to get here.
It did.
And I think this code, this kind of relates back to in the beginning of the start of this. It's helped bring that peace for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm learning more about myself. And by me learning more about myself, it's helping me learn more about you and our marriage.
Yeah.
And how I fit and how it works for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because you think like it's just funny. You think you be the person you were when you got married. And even if you try, you won't be that person because life happens and you go through things.
Mm-hmm.
But these experiences have really taught me to really look inward when times are great, when times are tough, when times are sad or times are bad, to really see what is something that I can do for me instead of looking for what can you do for me in those times. And that's one thing I am appreciative of, is now we don't just as our first default act out and look for each other to save each other.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're leaning more towards now where something happens catastrophic and we kind of we come together, most importantly, but we look inward first.
Yeah.
And then after we look inward, we externalize it and say, okay, this is where we are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a pretty beautiful.
It is. It is a beautiful experience. And it sucks that a lot of people don't get to experience because they just don't want to put in the work.
They don't want to communicate.
They don't want to yeah, exactly. They don't want to put in the work to communicate because someone always has to be right.
Oh, yeah. That's another thing that has helped my peace. I'm not gonna lie.
That it's okay if you're wrong. It's okay to have different of opinion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not trying to fight you to be right about something.
Yeah.
I always, and it's one thing we learn from therapy is
I love therapy.
It's you and me versus the problem.
Yeah.
It's not you versus me and the problem,
mm-hmm.
or me versus you and the problem.
Yep.
So having that separation of the entity, knowing that we're going to come on the other side of it together, really helps us separate when it comes to blending with the problem.
Yeah.
Does it happen? Yeah. But I think in the midst of that happening, one of us can kind of see that, and we kind of cue each other and remind each other, hey, this is just this. It's not you, it's not me. This is what it is. And that kind of helps us come out of that bottomless pit.
It does. It really does. It's work.
It is.
It is work. And just because we're two women doesn't mean, and there is, just because we're two women and there is you that's an alpha and me that's like more submissive, doesn't mean that it can't work.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that it's easier because we're two women.
It's harder. Because there are things that we cannot avoid.
Yeah.
Even if we try. And for example, don't want to do that one. No, I don't want to do that one.
No, you have to do it.
I mean, for example, if this is so simple, but I think anybody can relate to it.
Okay.
I think, well, my example is feelings.
Okay.
We talk about feelings a lot more often than any typical couple would. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing, and I think it's beautiful. And I hope that we instill that in our children, whether they're boys, girls, whatever they want to call themselves. Because it's an unspoken truth that isn't shown to us in our adolescence time frame. And you've helped me come to the understanding and the appreciation of it. And in the beginning, I used to try to avoid that shit like the plague. I'm I don't want to talk about that because that caused for me to be vulnerable with you. I don't want to be vulnerable with you. I'm still getting to know you. I'm married to you. How does that make sense? It does to us because that's how marriage looks like. You don't really know the person until you are. Actually, you don't know the person fully ever. You just continually get to know them.
Yeah, you're continually growing together.
But yeah, so when you would never let that go, I had to, reflect internally and say, all right, the writing is on the wall. This is not going anywhere. We are always going to talk about feelings because this woman lives and breathes to talk about feelings.
Yep.
And you don't, but you can. And I think I've said this before. When I'm good at something and I know I'm good at something, I'm willing to jump head in first to do it.
Yeah.
But when I don't know what the hell I'm doing because I've never seen it done, I get cold feet and I run from it.
Yeah.
And that's what happened when we talked about feelings. It's I've never seen anyone in my family do that. I've never done that unless it's all good, positive feelings. So I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And so with you being there and ready to hear what I have to say, whether it's good or bad, made it a little easier to step into it.
Yeah.
And knowing that when I was vulnerable, you had no judgment was like the icing on the cake, because we live in a very crazy world where you're constantly being judged. So to have the thought of being vulnerable with someone you really love, that's another risk that you take. And you don't know what the fallout will be.
Exactly. You don't. And you have to do it. That's the big thing. It's you have to do it. Because if you don't, neither one of us are ever going to know if this is a good fit or not.
Exactly.
Because having all these brick walls up, I understand why they're there, because of past issues, childhood trauma, what have you. It makes sense, but I was never one to automatically
put up.
Walls up, because I am aware and know that everybody is different and everybody goes through things, and that's the reason why they act a certain way.
Yeah.
But like I'm gonna try my damnedest, to like be there and try and be supportive and try and guide my partner into like realization of like, hey, you kind of have to bring it down. If you want to let me in, like you have to bring it down.
I love that so much about you. I really do.
Because I have been hurt. I could easily be like so mistrusting automatically as like my automatic default because of what I have been through in like past relationships. But like I refuse to make that my identity. Like no.
I love that.
And that's why I was always like so big on communicating.
Yeah.
Always. And it took a while. Like I haven't always been like this because of my upbringing and the fact that, like women have their place in my culture, and it's not to constantly have that type of communication in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely not the case at all. And I knew that's not what I wanted. But in my first probably real relationship, like there wasn't really a lot of that. There was a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
But not effective communication.
Right.
And not communicating my emotions effectively too on top of that. So it's taken a while. Even with us when we first got married, like it took a while. I wasn't perfect at communicating my emotions.
No.
Like absolutely not.
Neither was
I was all over the place.
Yeah. I think that's the art of communication. It is a journey. It's not a finish line.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think that, communication is just me telling you how I feel, you got to think again, because it's not just about making sure you express yourself to your significant other. It's about you ensuring that what you express to them is understood.
Mm-hmm.
And also you understand how that affects them and what they perceive to see of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when you get the understanding.
Yeah.
And you start to walk the path and the journey together of expressing your communication better.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that it's not easy.
No, it's not.
And that's the scary part that many people decide to walk away from, is no one said it would be this hard.
Right. That is, no one ever talks about how hard. It's always like, oh, you just got to keep going. You'll get there. You'll be fine. Y'all will be all right. But it's like, no, say that shit is hard. That shit is fucking hard.
It is hard.
It is hard. You're going to want to beat your head in, and you're going to want to beat your partner's head in. You're going to want to run away. You're going to want to run away. Sorry. And you're going to want them to leave. But you have to come back together.
Yeah.
I'm getting emotional.
I see. It's not easy. But one thing I can say is that it is worth it.
It is. It is so worth it. So worth it.
The journey within itself has really helped bring me to having really good internal peace.
Yeah.
Like we're going towards, we hit 6 years.
We hit 6 years being married.
I always heard that the 6 years, like where you really start to see the person you marry for who they really are. And you either run towards it or you run away from it. And I definitely think we're running towards it.
Absolutely.
And we did see each other. Exactly why we went to therapy. You start seeing it, like, whoa.
Start seeing the writing on the wall. Yeah. Like, okay, something has to change, like within us internally. So then our marriage can be effective positively.
Why were you getting emotional?
Don't ask me that, because I'm gonna start crying again. Just because we've like been there.
Oh yeah.
We've been there to the point of like looking the other way. You know what I mean? Or going the other way. from each other.
You know what's interesting about that statement
What?
is they were always, it's crazy to think that all it takes is a moment for your life to change or for your relationship to change.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always just moments that we had when we considered turning away.
Yeah. Turn away from each
They
other.
never lasted longer than a moment. Like for certain people, it settles with them for weeks and weeks and months and years and years, and they're like, okay, I'm done. But there's always a moment in time where we're like, we're at odds too much. Like we got to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I always like. I really knew within like, okay, this is my person because this doesn't last for more than an hour, 2 hours, whatever. Like I'm over it by then, and I want her, and I miss her.
Mm-hmm.
So what is really going on?
Yeah.
And that's what kind of, it felt like a boomerang. It's just like, all right, Leo, what can you do within yourself to help this be a better, healthy marriage?
Yeah.
And so started cultivating that. But I definitely agree that it was some tough times. And when those moments were happening, we're like, well, it don't look any good for us.
It don't look too good, right? Yeah. But that's when you said we would miss each other, and we're like, okay, we can't obviously go back to normal and act like nothing just happened. Right. So we actually have to talk about it, because acting like nothing just happened was not gonna fly for me.
Oh, I agree. Oh yeah.
It was not gonna fly for me at all.
I know.
So in those moments where, especially where you were like, okay, I'm done with this moment of feeling like it's time to go, like I want to come back to her, and you wanted to just be lovey-dovey and resume, and I'd be like, skirt, no ma'am. Not happening. You're gonna see my point of view.
Yes,
and I want to see your point of view.
Yes, you did.
And I want to see why it is that there was conflict. And you were like, ugh.
Feelings.
Feelings.
Run.
The sirens are going off. Oh, man. But yeah, that's why I got emotional.
So how do you think I've changed?
You have changed in the fact that you have been able to willingly just let your emotions flow and not harbor them in, and like be vulnerable. Like this morning we were crying. They were happy tears. Like I said this morning, like I've never seen you like have happy tears. I have happy tears all the time. I have tears for anything.
You do.
I have tears if I'm happy, if I'm sad, if I'm mad. I have tears. Tears come out of these eyes of mine on like a continuous loop.
Yeah.
They are connected. My tear glands are connected to my emotions. What can I say? And for you, that doesn't come naturally.
No.
And so to be able to see that change over the years is beautiful.
Thank you, baby.
Absolutely. And I'm just happy to be a part of this journey with you still.
I am happy that you have helped me be a person that's more in tune with their emotions.
No.
Because as typical as it sounds, not all women are emotionally bonded.
Yeah.
With themselves.
Very true.
Like I grew up with older brothers, so boys don't talk about their emotions. Everything's all physical and whatever. And the love you get for them is more of like a protective thing. Like you know, like if something was to happen to you physically, they have your back. They're not gonna let anything happen to you. And that's their way of showing I love you, sis.
Yeah.
And I won't let anyone harm you. But outside of that, you're not getting much more than that. True. It's just their language that they knew and understood that portrays I love you. And that's what I was doing in our marriage. I was doing a lot of protective measures of showing you like I love you. I never thought that I would have to get in tune with my emotions and express it in that way. I'm like, whoa, like how do you even do that?
Right.
And I think that's what bonded me to you so easily, because you did that so effectively, and I thought it was so beautiful. And so, yeah, like I really appreciate you, because this has been a journey. Yeah. And I'm glad that you decided to stick around to see the fruits of my labor, because I wouldn't have been either way without you.
I wouldn't either. You're my best friend.
My best friend.
I told you that time and time again. I am rocking till the wheels fall off.
That's right. Rocking.
And then you were my person. Because I was not giving up on you. I was not giving up on us. That's how I knew you were my person.
Yeah.
Because I am, and I have been one to just like draw the line. Like, this is it. I don't care. I'm a very forgiving person. But at the same time, like, I know when to just cut things off. And I couldn't just do that with you. Because I love you so much.
That's that splat.
Shut up. Oh my gosh. What's wrong with you?
I love you.
I love you. You're so annoying.
I know.
I knew it. I just knew it. I was like, I can't. Like, it's something that is stopping me from just
walking away.
Yeah.
There is truly a beauty to the messiness.
Isn't it?
It really does bring out the peace.
Absolutely.
And we just getting started.
That's right.